And hello, welcome along. Hi, it's Kathy Frey here from IMCO, from the International Integrated Maternity Healthcare Organisation. And welcome along to this week's live webinar. And some of you will be watching it later on. And we've got Dr. Gauri Lowe here today. Gauri, say hello.
Hello. Good evening from South Africa.
And it's very nice to have Gauri back. And Gauri's got a very interesting background, which she'll go over, in that she is a trained medical doctor, although since her home birth in her 3rd year of medical school, she's really focused on that sacred and on the sacredness of physiological birth and postpartum care. And that must have been an interesting situation, being in the middle of medical school and talking about home birthing. So that would have got a little bit of interesting reaction from colleagues, I imagine. And Gauri, but she'll explain her story. And Gauri also did further studies in botanical medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, which is Indian medicine, and several other holistic ways of caring for women. And she's also spent several of the last years between India and South Africa. So that will be very interesting as well. So, and the topic today that she's going to be particularly focusing on is the importance of reframing women's healthcare now, which she will go into. And I'm sure that there's a lot of us here who are already preaching to the converted as such. Yes, that's our passion. And so I know Gauri's going to be sharing a PowerPoint with the audience. And so we'll just hand over to you, Gauri.
Okay, wonderful. My screen just disappeared there for a second. I'm not. I hope it doesn't
at this end, your picture's frozen, but oh no, you're back there again, but we can still hear you.
Okay, so I'm not sure what happened there. But yes, thank you very much, Kathy. And it's really exciting to be back. Last time I was in India. Okay, good. You can see this now. And it was it was like 1:00 a.m. I think, and I had to present outside. Yeah. So this time I'm glad I'm in my kitchen. Yeah.
So that's wonderful. We can see yeah, that's it. That's perfect. Wonderful. Thank you.
Good. So I think as I go, there's little parts of my story that sometimes I feel have been told so many times, and sometimes I forget that actually they are very important to keep saying. So thank you for having me here, and I really appreciate the introduction, and I hope I can bring something to your listeners. And what I'm talking about is the wisdom in postpartum, and I'm also kind of aware that there might be so much overuse of this word wisdom or sacred. And I want to bring us back to actually not just brushing over these words, but really bringing them into a way that we can practice caring for women, which is actually embodying what these words mean and not just giving them kind of word space. So in your own head, you could kind of think for yourself, well, what does the wisdom, what would wisdom be in postpartum? And what am I talking about when I refer to what I refer to my medicine now, which is womb wisdom as medicine? And I want you to just connect with what that might mean with you in terms of how you connect your work, the sacredness of birth or taking care of women in your own life or in your service, and what it might mean in terms of connecting with the wisdom, which might be like Mother Nature, or it might be connecting with the natural cycles of life, or it might be connecting with our actual physical womb and doing meditations that bring us into that chakral center energy space. Or it might be about how we're interacting with our body and actually communicating with the wisdom our body is expressing to us when it might be termed symptoms. So in terms of these things, really kind of going into the branches of womb wisdom and what we get out of the time in postpartum, which is actually also part of the cycle of the, the natural wisdom of Mother Earth. So postpartum in that term is really seeing it as a part of a mother's life, which embodies so much opportunity for wisdom, maybe like that. And so this is a little outline to my presentation. And I wanted to start off with what I called my her story, my history. And so I'll go into little parts of that. And then what I wanted to cover further really was seeing postpartum as a micro world of womb wisdom. So what we're really getting is the wisdom in postpartum. What are the 3 healing principles that we can really, if anything, focus on in postpartum? What is this resistance to postpartum care? And what is maybe the essence of so much womb wisdom, which could be mothering the mother? And then how do elementals come into postpartum in such a beautiful way to bring the wisdom into practice? And then I have an invitation for you to end with. Yeah, so, okay, so this is kind of one picture which I thought might embody a lot of my history. So this is me, it's in 2013. I co-founded the Midwifery and Birth Conference in Cape Town, South Africa. And I have an 8-week, I'm baby wearing my 8-week baby in that picture. And I'm giving a talk on maternity care in the Western Cape. Because there was such a diversity between state care and private care, and so many things in between and due to that. And then you can also just see our range of speakers really represents a nice cultural representation of South Africa. And this is very rich for me because it shows here my passion for my work, because this is my second baby. And I did have an interesting her story, which brings me into medicine, which I'm going to try and quickly go through now. And it's because of my determination to really work with the root of healing, I think. And I was never very satisfied until I got to that root of healing. And that kept me searching and searching and searching so much that I've left medicine several times, and in that way gone very deeply into what I thought at that time was for me the root of medicine and the root of healing. And so the first time I dropped out of medicine was after I'd been in medical school for 1 year, and I went into a Vedic ashram, and I studied Vedic philosophy and Vedanta on the soul and meditation as a way for healing. So I completely went from medication to meditation. And I've got one more adage I'm going to add to that later. But after 7 years, I went back to medicine, now that I'd completed my soul medicine. And I came in, obviously, with a very different approach because I knew what I was getting into. And that was when in 3rd year, now I was a bit of an older student, I had my baby, which was a home birth. And it was a very interesting part of, walking the wards and writing an exam with a big belly and, having my home birth. But I didn't expect it to change my life so much, because I think what happened in that home birth is I tasted a very beautiful raw energy, is what I call, where I almost feel like I met the birth Devi, the birth goddess. And it was an initiation into much more than motherhood, which I didn't know at the time. But I became very active in maternity rights because my birth was so powerful. And I went back to my studies a year later. I had a year maternity leave. And then my experience was very, very different and very, very shocking and very traumatic, really. And that's when I became quite active for maternity rights maternity rights in healthcare. And I finished, it's quite grueling finishing medicine, doing my internship. I had my baby at the end of my second baby at the end of my complete training, which was, good 6 years plus 3 years training, 9 years later after I started. And then I could finally bring what I knew was the root of healing and medicine into practice. And that has kind of been my journey ever since, is kind of going so deeply into medicine and then saying, okay, but now I want to bring in what I really feel is the medicine. And in the last few years, you know, as you grow with your babies, you grow professionally. Well, I think many of us in this work do. And so as my babies grew out of postpartum time, I grew into more of the other world of the womb time. And so that was when I got more into menstrual cycle wisdom and women's healthcare, really, but deeply holistic, a little bit functional, but that wasn't very satisfying for me. And deeply botanical, also working not only with plants as like clinical herbalism, but deeply as allies in our soul journey of healing. And that's where I became closer and closer to what I would like to call womb wisdom. And right now, to be honest, I'm almost coming to a point where I'm coming back to medicine. So it's quite an interesting time. I didn't think that would happen, where I find I'm needing to step back into a more medical role to bring in this wisdom. And that is certainly a very curious time to be heading into. So that's kind of my history in a little nutshell. And here's another little nutshell. That if you just have to kind of look at it like a nutshell, like a little micro world, like just through the lens of birth or postpartum, what is happening in this micro world that is actually really, really the important part of postpartum? And that is where we really get to consider what is happening for the mother, what is happening for the baby, and how is our biology and our hormones and our situation, our environment so precious and curated around that time to support our optimal health. Because I've come to a intense knowing that Mother Nature does know it better than us. And actually, if we look back at her ways and we bring in those ways, we can avoid a lot of complication and we can avoid a lot of devastation, really, as well. And yeah, so I really wanted us to kind of, because I find when you get into that lens, you almost are able to tactile and experience I guess there's different sensations you bring into your way of approaching postpartum, which is very different from a clinical approach because it is using a different set of senses and brain material really to approach something. It's more the heart, it's more intuition, it's more this kind of instinctual knowing. It's not just cerebral knowing, but cerebral knowing is also helpful. That is why I included this slide, because I thought let's not leave alone that actually if we do listen to Mother Nature and we do apply what her lessons are, however we want to call them, in terms of like womb wisdom or feminine wisdom or postpartum care, if we look at that and if we look at what anybody might want from an outcome of postpartum, we need to see that what we are doing is in alignment with what we want to achieve. And I have to say that the best way to achieve, what would we want to achieve in postpartum? We want to achieve healing for the mother physically. We want to achieve bonding. We want to achieve breastfeeding. And through this, we want to achieve mostly a trust that the mother has with this relationship, this new dual relationship, well, in a new way, now the baby's outside, that she can almost like have a positive feedback, you know. So the more she experiences trusting herself and connecting and doing what she feels and intuiting from her body, the more she can trust herself. And this is very powerful in parenting and mothering, because a lot of things that are encouraged are not reinforcing that. And that's where a lot of disparity and illness will set in. So I think it's really important to kind of look through a lens. Are we achieving what we want to achieve by doing what we're doing. And we can use this, always as a yardstick for us. And then also, if you pan out a little bit, we've got the microcosm, but we've also got the pan out. What is happening in the family? What is happening in the units becoming us, the new, the new, all of them, their new life that has started unfolding with the baby and becoming a mother. And actually, I just want to go back because there's a bit more to what this also prevents. And it prevents complications. And these complications we also want to prevent, which are not being prevented right now because we are not enforcing the values, not we, maybe you are the we that isn't. You are the we that's part of the change. But in general, the medical systems are, because we're not supporting care and support during postpartum, we're seeing things which shouldn't be happening in terms of our physical capacity, like pelvic health disease, like depression, anxiety. So all these things are also increasing because we are not putting in the care and the time and the support that needs to happen for these things to be avoided. So we're seeing the opposite of what we want, actually. And this is almost one of the deeper reasons, because, if you say rest, sometimes it's a bit like an allergic word. And we have every reason in the book why we can't rest. And I think a lot of it has to do with our value system, actually, where we don't value rest and we value pushing on and production. And we think that we can do better by pushing on more. And I think postpartum specifically teaches us that this is the time that we need to rest and nourish the body so we can be of optimal production. And sometimes with my more conscious moms, they have an active sense of slowing down remarkably in the last part of the third trimester, where they can really feel everything becomes much slower. And it's almost like this expectation that if they can get that slow part and they can slow down at that last part of their pregnancy, it's like it's for the labor. And I'm coming to believe that it's not slowing down. It's actually a practice for postpartum, so you can get used to a slower rhythm, and it doesn't end with the birth. It actually starts. That's kind of another reframing I'm starting to see in what happens you see, when you stop and you actually look consciously and observe, you learn so much from what a woman's body is naturally going through and processing at the time. And if you read here, and I can make these slides available also to you, that was my intention, that there's also wisdom in rest. And I've made a booklet that I can also send through to you, Kathy, which is called Rest is a Feminine Principle. Because when you get into the actual beauty and psychology and the nature of rest, and you see what a magical portal it almost is in terms of being such a medicine, such a medicine, with that it's got a lot of healing, physically, mentally, and it's such a natural part of our life that we skip over and think that we can skip over. And postpartum deeply calls us to rest because it is the medicine for the mother's body. And yeah, so that's difficult sometimes. There's a few elements I wanted to bring out, which are really important, like the three vital parts of postpartum. And I'm sure if you've gone into the 42 days and Ayurvedic part of postpartum, you'll see that they come up again and again. So for me, it's warmth, nutrition, and rest. So this is the warmth part. And this is, you can go into any analogy that you can think of with warmth or heat. So you want to use food that is warm in temperature. You want to use food and spices that are heating and warming in temperature, like ginger or cardamom or cinnamon. So you want your warm soups, your warm dals and lentils and khichdis and stews, and you want things that are wet and warm and sweet. So if you have rice, you don't want it like a dry, stodgy rice. You want it a wet rice and you can even make it sweet. So in Ayurveda, they have certain you'd call them gruels, really, like a wet cereal, wet, warm, moist cereal. But the idea is that it's easy on the digestion. So it doesn't cause any kind of constipation or blockage. It's easily absorbed, so you get all the nutrition from it. And it is basically the elements of healing that most support a woman's body to come back into her healing state in the best way, in the optimal way, in the quickest, strongest way. So these are the elements of Ayurveda, and we want to bring them into our practical care postpartum. And this takes preparation, more or less, depending how your mom is kind of, in the kitchen or about all these kind of things. And sometimes, preparing to the degree that you want to write down what the ingredients are that you need in your kitchen before, and you get them ideally before the postpartum starts, but you also have a list up so that a friend could get them, so that there's some kind of understanding of what your support is. So it takes planning down to quite a detail sometimes to actually see it come into a flow. Otherwise, the postpartum can be a little bit more challenging in terms of, if you don't have it there and ready, it's probably not going to happen postpartum. So you want to have that foresight, and but it's very beautiful also. You can really play with the herbs nicely, and the teas and the drinks and the ingredients, and really, get into practicing some meals and having some nice menu recipes to share. So these are the kind of foods that we're looking at, and warm drinks and, herbal teas are so healing postpartum. So you want to look at your nice herbal teas that are physically warming in terms of a tea, but also herbs that might be, and something like a chai is kind of quite a typical one that is also very healing for the body. So, making a tea out of cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, little black pepper, and then you can have Ayurvedic herbs like shatavari, or and there are some really lovely things, nutmeg, that are very beautiful for adding to a postpartum regime. And then you can use it also more in the analogy, and I love this because I love using the elements of heat and fire in terms of, the mother has just become postpartum, so she's just given birth. She's it's like an initiation. It's like walking through the fire. And so the fire has a very transformative, but a very holding energy. And when we're using the element of warmth, we're also inviting that heat to kind of come and support those transformations. And we bring in heat also through steams, through yoni steams or herbal baths, sitz baths. Dupana I've added I love dupana. It's using smoke, herbal smoke, to cleanse. And that is also an Ayurvedic practice that you use for vaginal steaming, for vaginal duping. So you'll actually like smudge the yoni, and that's the smoke carries purifying ingredients from the herbs. So it's really beautiful that. So you can kind of see how the analogy of warmth goes on. You want the mom to be warm, so you want to make sure you've got blankets or heaters and no drafts. And then you also want to extend it to warm words. So you also want the experiences to be warm to the mother. So you don't want, really in this time, people who are going to be so full of advice or so full of possibly making the mother feel minimized and inept, as so often might happen without intention from well-meaning relatives. So also just being really conscious to the environment and the metaphorical warmth also. And in your mind, you can also think of other ways that you can bring warmth into your actual consultations and your presentations with your woman. Maybe if you're using essential oils, then you'll also know your healing essential oils that you can add into massages, or have a specific massage blend that she can rub on her tummy afterwards. So you can bring in whatever your field is you can bring warmth into that. It's kind of fun. I love that. And then nutrition also follows the certain principles, and nutrition is always an important kind of leg or founding point for me because, well, yeah, like it says here, you know, the food is our basic blocks in our body, but there's so much kind of consciousness and vitality that comes around it in terms of also preparing it and really going into depth of bringing that consciousness and awareness into what we're preparing, and how beautiful it is when we feel that difference in the food that we share. So nutrition, the principles for postpartum, if I'm sure you've had talks on this though, is, as I said before, kind of, this is the Ayurvedic principles: wet, warm, simple to digest, healing, so protein rich, anabolic, you know, you want building up foods, you don't want raw salads and ice cream and pizza, processed foods. And I think it's always a shock how much moms need to eat postpartum, and that they need to have it next to their bed. I'm so emphatic about that. So yeah, nutrition is a real important. You can't really miss that out. It's such an important part, and it's always so often left out because a postpartum mom might be, you know, left alone, or just it's not something that she's going to value for herself because she's could be so prioritized with baby, and we have to remind her that the way to prioritize baby is also to prioritize yourself. So nutrition, such a left out gap in postpartum healing. We could speak forever about that. And because we can, I just thought, this is one of my favorite recipes. It's a khichdi, maybe you know khichdi. It's a mix of dal, lentils, and rice and vegetables, and you can add so many vegetables and so many healing spices in that I just include the recipe here because it's a great postpartum meal. It's a great one-pot meal for any time where you need to build up your resources. And this is the interesting part, that with all this knowledge and with all this kind of like inner knowing and kind of, you know, even for the most sacred conscious moms, there is this huge resistance. And the resistance is almost maybe the healing. Working through the resistance is the healing. And yeah, so where we find ourselves with that within ourselves, or with working with women who are struggling to get past the resistance, I'm sure you know what I mean. The resistance to actually stopping, claiming your care, you know, doing what we need for postpartum, which is on the fundamental natural level of bonding and baby, to actually consider what's happening on those like energy levels of baby coming into the new world, you know, mother and baby, family, dad getting used to this whole new system. It takes so much like stopping or pausing for it all to just go kind of integrate, so you can become this new us of the family. And I think there's a lot of healing that comes when we need to reflect on what is our own resistance, because that's kind of where we have to challenge our beliefs about ourselves, our value systems, what is our worth, what do we need to because you know, I think that's part of the vulnerability of being postpartum, is that we are vulnerable and we're not our strongest. And that can be very hard for women who are also very in control and capable. So this is a very real thing. And it's almost more than supporting the woman, it's getting past the resistance to even discuss that support is a thing and needs to be prepared. And then this is also one of my most beautiful teachings, if like not a conclusion, from what I've used the words of womb wisdom as medicine, is that it's so much of it comes down to mothering the mother, and to really hold the space, or actually support them. When I say mother the mother, I actually mean mothering ourselves. So it's not us mothering another mother, I actually mean the wisdom comes into mothering ourselves. And that means we can't, it means accountability. It means we can't pass the blame, but it means we also have infinite compassion and understanding and an unconditional space and a deep connection to all of that, which holds all of that, which is Mother Earth and Divine Mother, whatever we might want to put in those words, where we can actually almost, you know, connect into and be able to anchor these feelings so that we can support ourselves in whatever stage we are of our own healing as mothers, as birth workers, as women helping other women, you know, wherever it is. I find that this is almost in my journey often the penultimate wisdom that it takes me to, requiring a deep softness and a deep understanding. And I think this is the beauty of maybe a combining of womb wisdom and postpartum care, where we have the kind of the reflection and the inner journey meeting how we practice and interact with women and what we bring to the consultations and what we keep reminding and holding the space for, because the mother's journey is the mother's journey. And I think that's a part where I'm at in my own practice journey, is that is really holding the space for the mother to navigate her own journey with the information, but it might not always be what I want as my journey or what I want as their journey or what I think is the best journey for them. And that's kind of where I'm sitting a little bit right now. And I included the elemental postpartum just with a few pictures here. You know, this is resting. This is just simply being and pausing and stopping. This is using herbs and plants and their different vitalities and their different healing elements they might bring in terms of warmth or coolness or air, you know, in terms of that elements, but it also might be in terms of its actual chemical properties that it might bring into healing or nourishing or supporting or strengthening in so many ways. And also so many nice teas and ways that we can use the elements to carry the herbs or the healing that we want. So it might be through oils, it might be through teas, it might be through an activity or ritual, it might be through talk, it might be through silence. But using the elements, I find, is like a beautiful foundation to hold the healing of Mother Nature into postpartum. And that's become a focus for me. And then also the importance of reframing postpartum. And along with reframing postpartum, I guess it brings for me in this passion of working through the resistance. And so I guess reframing is really part of working through the resistance, where we support and we glorify and we normalize rest, basically, and this space of baby mooning and cocooning and having that time to get to know each other and connect and earth, you know, like really earth into the sense of safety and security. And that's where nourishment comes in again. So that's how it kind of interwoves and it leads it into each other. And then I think this is good. I think that skipped. It skipped my me. Just a bit of details about me. So if you want to connect further or connect about the courses coming up about postpartum, that's my details. And then just a thank you slide.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Gauri. I want to, just for those who are listening as well, sometimes people aren't always watching, can you just go over your contact details as well? What's your email
should I put that up
address
again?
No, I'm just thinking of those that sometimes people are listening and not watching.
I understand.
Doing this
Sorry.
as an audio
Okay.
rather than a visual. So yeah, maybe just go over your contact details as well as that slide. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, Gauri, my name is Gauri, and my surname's Lowe. So if you look up Gauri Lowe, drgaurilowe.com is my website, and similar on Instagram. And Facebook's been giving a few issues, but I'm not sure if my page is still live there right now.
We've had an interesting comment come through from Margarita. She goes, "Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I am a student midwife and a birth doula. I am struggling to complete my degree because sometimes I found myself being compliant with so many occasions that challenge the midwife I want to be and what I see in a hospital setting. I do not want to lose my holistic approach and love for this job. And I just wanted to ask Dr. Gauri if she has any advice on how to navigate this. Thank you."
Yeah, thank you for the question, because I think it encapsulates a very important need. And I've actually been breaking down a little bit almost of, what happens during the training that that we have. Because for me, after I left medicine, I apprenticed as a home birth midwife, and I say, like, I unschooled my obstetrics. And what I'm trying to do now actually is address the trauma. What the words I'm trying to get to is, I'm trying to address and understand the trauma basically that happens to nurses, midwives, healthcare professionals by the end of their training, because of this compliancy, because of the hierarchy, because of the bureaucracy, because of the so many things about basically consumer medical healthcare that is not in line with
And
health and
also,
wellness.
I'd add in
And
the word fear as well, because fear, the students can.
because you could lose your job if you don't get your logbook signed, or those kind. Yeah, so I really get that, and I don't. I have empathy. I wish I had the answer, but I feel like I'm asking the questions to receive the answers, and part of the answer really is, I think, having support groups of like-minded, mature professionals, because you want to have mature discussions about really understanding protocols and really understanding how best to support women. And I think some things that, if I had to reflect back on, because I was also doing my training with a young child that I only wanted to be with, so I had resistance, and just taking more time to take care of my biology, I guess, would have helped me function better. That's, we
Might
always got
add
to
in,
come back to taking care of our nervous system.
yeah, I might add in there, Margarita, having, because I've kind of walked in your shoes, I've been a student midwife, um and and had that come from that holistic approach, and been a little bit perturbed by the level of medicalization of things. And I think that there probably, for the ease of yourself in a way, there probably has to be just a level of just acceptance and tolerance, and you just know it's pretty difficult to change the world as a student midwife, but your day will come, once you've got your qualifications and you're out there and you're in charge and you can make a difference. And so it can be like swallowing a jagged little pill sometimes, but you'll get there in the end. And I remember saying, myself as a final year student midwife, we're going back a bit, but I remember saying to somebody, another midwife, how long does it take till you really feel, confident with your own competence, and you kind of walk into birthing suite kind of feeling in charge, and you're not fearful in anymore, you're just kind of in that real place of empowerment. And she goes, 5 years. I went, oh no, well, I'll be doing all the study, and then I've got another 5 years. She goes, 5 years. And I'm like, okay. And she was right. And I remember at about 5 years into it, because I did mostly case loading, so that's not shift working midwifery. That's when you take on clients and you look after them through the antenatal period, and you attend their birth, and then you home visit. So continuity of care midwifery. And I remember hearing on Birthing Suite one time when there was the shift changeover of the obstetricians, and the in-charge midwife of Birthing Suite was basically briefing the new obstetricians that were coming on for that shift as to who's in what room and what's going on. And I heard her say, as I walked past, she didn't realize I was walking past, but as I heard her say to the obstetrician something like, "Oh, room 8, oh, that's one of Kathy Frey's women. Don't worry about her woman. They all give birth," and went on to the next room. And I was like, yes. So it was, and it took those years for everybody to kind of, get yourself into that place where you walk in and people aren't feeling like they need to check on your work, and you've proved yourself, and you do it your way, and your way works. And so just, I guess I'm saying, Margarita, just hang in there, because it's not going to happen overnight, but the day will come where people will sort of go, wow, what Margarita does. Yeah, she does things a little differently. She's a little airy fairy, a little holistic with what she's doing, but man, it produces results. Yeah. Hang
Yeah,
in there.
yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. And when people used to say to me, "Oh, we'll need you, people like you," I used to hate it when people would say that. But actually right now, deep respect to those who are going through the medical midwifery training, because there is no other way, I mean, South Africa, to practice legally. And it's not easy. But I think, keeping on asking the questions that you're asking, and also connecting with the woman. There's a lot that you're learning in the medical field that you realize afterwards also, and that you get a great understanding into how doctors think, and you can explain that to women very well.
Yeah, really on point. Absolutely. So, and as you say, Gauri, that it's, you almost get tired of people going to you in a medical environment, "Oh, we need people like you," because they know you're holistic. And it's this overall feeling like the whole system needs that, needs that, right? I mean, when we've got people that are, chronically diseased or acutely diseased at the hospital, and they get served their floppy broccoli, and some gelatinous dessert that nobody knows what's in it. I mean, what are we doing? Like, we know better than this. We know nutrition is so critical, yet the system is a slug in many ways. So hang in there.
Yeah, and I think it's a big relief for women to just experience a level of care that I think we speak about in things like this. And
It is, and often it's, you're right. I mean, they've never received any kind of holistic care. So often the journey of, that whole journey to become a mother, as you say, when you had your home birth, you didn't realize at the time that it was going to be life transformative.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
only afterwards that you've gone through that journey and you go, oh my
Yeah.
God, we're not doing this again. I think I found your comments about the resistance really relevant. Um, I,
God, yeah.
I guess that's it is a real frustration, particularly with primates, that there is this kind of feeling of that they're so capable, and that's all right, and look, they might read that book, and they might watch that video, or and no, look, we're working up to 37 weeks, I'm all good, I'm all fine, and then it's afterwards we've got these terribly high levels of postpartum depression, and it's we know it stems back from right from that second half of that third trimester, where they never dialed it down. and it's and afterwards it's those second time around mothers who just come from a place of, that's not happening again. That's never going to happen to me again. That I'm never going to let that happen to a baby again. I'm never going through this level of trauma again. I'm going to get engaged. I'm going to get more holistic. I want to get empowered from this. I'm going to take ownership of this journey, and you see that often with those second timers. Yeah. And there is a resistance.
Yeah, even if you know it, by the second week, you want to get up and move around. I mean, I get it. You can get up and move around, but just like, not the whole day, every day. So
Yeah.
there's golden wisdom in like 42 days. But to
Yes,
dial
I would
down
always say
is,
to my
yeah,
woman, I don't want you, I want you to live in your pajamas for 40 days, 40 days and 40 nights. Just live in your pajamas. If I come around and the house is really too tidy and you're dressed and you've got some makeup on, I won't be happy.
yeah, I feel it physically. I get like, I want to like open the door and help myself in and go to the
Yes.
bedroom. Yeah, yeah.
And I love your adage, from medication to meditation. I'm definitely going to
Oh,
borrow that one. That's so
that's what I must add on to now. So this is my new addition now, from medication to meditation, but now we're going to mediation, which for me just means more information sharing, more giving more actually sovereignty to the families in the couple, and giving them more information for their own decision making. I know not everyone wants to be so responsible in their births, but for those who do want to be, I'm anyway. Mediation's my new adage.
That's your third word. That's lovely. And do you want to just go over? Now, you mentioned about the booklet that you've produced about rest.
Yeah.
You want to just go over how somebody could contact you to access that?
Yeah.
That would be great.
That I can put my email also on. So Gauri, Gauri, at drgaurilowe.com. Yeah. That's the email.
They're
And
simply just emailing
Gauri,
you and you can send that out to them.
absolutely. And I'm also in 1 month, in November, I'm having quite a beautiful seminar, which is called The Wisdom of Postpartum. And it's going to be 5 days, and we're going to delve into just the little aspects, 2 hours a day for 5 days, with replays available on just different parts where we can bring the wisdom of postpartum into our work. So there's a part of anxiety, holistic approach and anxiety, yoni steaming, intimacy after birth, and just a few kind of ad hoc topics which are fun and holistic. Yeah. So
Fabulous.
so
In
that's also coming up.
November. So, and we are,
Yeah.
we're almost November now for this live webinar.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's fantastic. And a lovely comment here from Kirsty Van Roy, and such a beautiful presentation from Dr. Gauri. Thank you. And from Asha Haruna, very insightful presentation. Thank you again for that commentary. And we've got a message from Kirsty. As a reflexologist and natural practitioner, I also hear we need people like you. And I hear it from people who never come to me for reflexology. Socially, I can see that you're out socially, and somebody mentions you're a reflexologist. Oh, the world needs people like you. Just come and see me.
Yeah, it's an interesting play between it's an interesting walk as healers, I think, where we find our alignment, and yeah, where it's really calling us, and where we show up in it. It's a very deeply personal healing. So yeah, you got to keep listening, I think.
Well, we're almost at time. Gauri, is there anything else you would like to just conclude with? Any other final thoughts you'd like to add?
Okay. Something recently that someone shared with me. She's firm right now. So she said she could really feel a sense of like, you know, time and life is really changing right now in the sense that it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow, because at any point her baby could come. And it was just that very beautiful kind of tangible way she explained like this deep sense of surrendering into a trust of what was going to flow, and a very conscious kind of acceptance and of the unknown, because a baby brings so much of that. And I thought that's just that it's such a joy and a privilege to work with women who are also so consciously walking their own pregnancy journey, and yeah, to walk alongside that and to witness it instead of control it is a great
Right.
privilege. I think I learned the most from that.
And
Yeah,
it's that letting go of the reins, of being in
yeah,
control of something that's fundamentally uncontrollable,
yeah,
and having it be something that happens with you, not to you. Yeah, it's just beautiful. Thank you so much for that insight. It's, you are in an environment here preaching to the converted. We're all thinking along those same lines, but it's always that reassurance that that like-mindedness is so important, and
yeah.
we are all, we can just continue to encourage everybody to be, thinking that more holistic way, because it's women have lost almost their right to have that as an amazing, beautiful experience. Even when things are medically complicated, it doesn't mean it needs to be medicalized. There is
Yeah.
medicine that's going to be involved. Some women do have highly complicated pregnancies, and so that happens. But I am good collegiate friends with one of New Zealand's most senior high risk pregnancy obstetricians. She has led maternal fetal medicine in New Zealand for many years. She's resigned from that role now, but she had a doctor by the name of Emma Parry. And if there was one thing Emma would always try to do with clients, even in those incredibly complex medical situations which some women are in, was always to try and keep things holistic. And so it's not impossible. It's about our
No.
physicians, just thinking of the whole big picture all the time, and embracing other clinicians, therapeutic clinicians, to be part of that journey. And
Yeah.
also, I think as we're seeing more millennials come in into senior roles in obstetrics, they've gone through the process as junior doctors, and now they've got, they're a bit older, a bit more senior. I think that's starting to make that impact, and we are seeing some of our older school God syndrome obstetricians realize that nobody's thinking of them as a god anymore. So
Yeah.
a woman are
Yeah.
questioning, and that's a
Yeah.
healthy thing too.
It's got to come from so many angles, I think,
Yeah,
and
uh,
medical is definitely part of the holistic. Yeah.
yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to those who
Yeah.
are live here today
Thank
and
you so
those
much.
making the putting up some comments and things. That's always great to have that interaction. And we just want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you, Gauri, for coming back and returning. And yeah, so bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Kathy.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks so much.
Have
Bye
a good
bye.
week, everybody. See you.